Upon learning of her first love's death, my wife leaped from the cruise ship during our honeymoon, ending her remaining life. It was then that I realized she had never gotten over Liang Zhang. Reborn back to her youth, she resolutely let go of my hand and strode towards her first love. I watched them go, then turned and left. From then on, our lives were just two parallel lines that never intersected. 10 years later, we met again at a banquet in Haishur. She had become a new celebrity among the elite, affectionately clinging to Liang Xiang's arm as they made their appearance. Seeing me crash the party looking for someone, she couldn't help but advise me. Why do you have to be so obsessed with me? Even if you waited for me for 10 years, I still wouldn't fall in love with you. I ignored her and pulled my son out from the corner where he was sneaking cake. Her eyes suddenly reddened, and she gripped my hand tightly. Are you deliberately trying to upset me? Didn't you say you'd only love me in this lifetime? I never imagined that in this lifetime I would have a chance to reunite with Su Sifei. At a high society banquet in the coastal city, she stood among the crowd arm in arm with Liang Xiang, her smile elegant and noble, showing no trace of the young girl she once was. The people gathered around them had beaming smiles on their faces and spoke in flattering tones. Miss Su is truly a woman who can match any man, securing a provincial-level project at such a young age. Her future prospects are limitless. And this gentleman beside you must be your partner. What a talented and beautiful couple, making others envious. Liang Zhang looked at Su Sifei with deep affection and said softly, We're planning to get married at the end of the year. Everyone is welcome to attend the wedding banquet if you're available. Another round of congratulations followed, and someone asked, I heard you've been together for 10 years already. Why are you only getting married now? I'm a bit curious about this question too. In the previous life, Su Sifei loved Liang Xiang so much that she was willing to die with him. After being reborn, she immediately broke up with me. I thought they would get married right after graduation, but I didn't expect they still haven't registered their marriage. Hearing these words, a barely noticeable stiffness flashed across Su Sifei's face, but she quickly covered it with a smile. Career first, then family. I want to give Xiang the best life possible. She looked at Liang Xiang with affection and sweetness almost overflowing from her eyes. In my previous life, when she was with me, I proposed several times. Only when her family pressured her did Su Sifei reluctantly agree to be with me. So it turns out love and the lack of it can be this obvious. Just as I was about to turn and leave, my peripheral vision caught a small figure, and my body instinctively followed. Bang! Champagne spilled all over the floor, and the waiter holding the tray looked at me with displeasure. Where did you run in from? Are you blind? His voice was loud enough to attract the attention of everyone around. Upon seeing my face, Su Sifei was stunned. Xie Tianxi, why are you here? I apologized to the waiter, explaining, I'm here looking for someone. Someone curiously asked Su Sifei, Miss Su, do you know him? Su Sifei's hand tightened on the wine glass as her gaze grew solemn. Ex-boyfriend. Someone nearby spoke hastily. You were together for 10 years. I thought you were each other's first love. The smile on Liang Xiang's face faded slightly. He held Su Sifei's hand and said casually, We were young then, broke up briefly after an argument. Who hasn't taken a wrong turn when they were young? Su Sifei remained silent, her gaze passing over me before turning to the waiter. Put the damages on my account. Let him go. She stood there, composed, not sparing me a single extra glance besides our initial encounter. It seemed she wanted to draw a clear line between me, the wrong turn, in front of Liang Xiang. The waiter quickly pushed me towards the exit. Miss Su is being kind, helping clean up your mess, but there won't be a next time. He glanced at my wrinkled pajamas with disdain and said, This is not a place for you. Please leave now. I pulled away from his hand and explained politely, I'm here to find someone. Once I find them, I'll leave on my own. The waiter scoffed and rolled his eyes. I've seen plenty of people like you trying to climb the social ladder. Do you even qualify to be at this kind of banquet? If you don't leave now, I'll call security. Wait. Sifei Su's voice came from behind him. She lifted her dress and looked at me with a sigh, saying resignedly, He's here to find me. Let me talk to him. Xiang Liang stood beside her, putting his arm around her shoulder as if marking his territory. Tian Shixia, Sifei and I are getting married soon. Anyone with a sense of shame wouldn't come looking for their ex at a time like this. Sifei Su's expression darkened, and she couldn't help but advise me. Why must you be so fixated on me? Even if you waited for me for 10 years, I still wouldn't fall in love with you. Being with you back then was just a mistake. Now that I finally have a chance to correct that mistake, I hope you can move on from the past sooner rather than later. Liang Zong looked me up and down, his eyes showing contempt. I can understand why you had to come find Sichuan. After all, times have changed. She's now a well-known entrepreneur and naturally attracts plenty of people trying to curry favor. Perhaps it was my wrinkled pajamas that gave him such confidence, as Liang Xiong spoke arrogantly. You graduated from a prestigious university. How did you end up like this? If I were you, I wouldn't even have the face to go outside. Su Sichuan frowned, took out her phone, with a hint of impatience in her voice. If you think I wronged you when we broke up, I can compensate you with a breakup fee now. Would 50,000 be enough? Her fingers moved across the screen for a moment, then suddenly froze. Did you delete me from your friends list? I was puzzled, not understanding why she was reacting so strongly. Isn't it normal to delete someone from your friends list after breaking up? Moreover, I have someone at home who gets particularly jealous. If they knew I still had my ex-girlfriend's contact information, they would definitely make a scene. Weren't you the one who said you didn't want me to come looking for you after we broke up? Su Sifei's expression turned cold, looking like she wanted to say something, but held back. I added in a calm tone, and no bother with the breakup fee, I don't need it. After these consecutive setbacks, Su Sifei's expression worsened, and she said coldly, Why are you putting on an act in front of me? If I hadn't seen how pathetic you are now, I wouldn't even want to speak a word to you. Liang Xiong gently comforted her. Sifei, you're just too kind-hearted. In my opinion, why bother with this kind of man? Look at his miserable state. He's just like Lu Shan, completely hopeless. His tone was contemptuous, seemingly forgetting that 10 years ago, he had been even worse than me. In my previous life, the reason Su Sifei's family disapproved of their daughter being with Liang Xiong was because he was an uneducated thug who engaged in criminal activities. When I first met Su Sifei in college, she had just bailed Liang Zong out of the police station and was being forced by her family to break up with him. During Su Sifei's most depressed period, I was the one who stayed by her side and helped her get through it. She loved photography, so I used the money I had planned to start a business with to buy her equipment worth tens of thousands. Through winter cold and summer heat, I carried dozens of pounds of equipment following behind her, just hoping to see a genuine smile from her. Who would have thought that Su Sifei would be the one to confess to me first? I knew about her past with Liang Xiong, and I had seen her occasionally staring blankly at their photos and albums. So when Su Sifei confessed, I asked her very seriously, Have you really let go of Liang Xiong? At that time, she hugged me tightly and spoke with determination. That's all in the past now. I've long since realized who truly cares about me. Tianxi, I love you. Let's be together. We dated for 7 years. Even her best friends couldn't help but be surprised. She liked Liang Zong so much, I thought you two wouldn't last long. But what nobody knew was that Su Sifei had rejected my proposals countless times in private. Xie Tianxi, I'm against marriage. Can't we just stay like this for life? It wasn't until Su Sifei's parents started pressuring her to get married that she finally agreed. During our honeymoon, news came of Liang Xiong's accidental car crash. She jumped off the cruise ship, leaving only a suicide note. In the note, she wrote about her love for Liang Xiong throughout, without a single word for me. At the end, she wrote in her own blood, Xiong, in this life, I only wanted to be your bride. Now, I'm coming to find you. At that moment, my love for her turned completely to ashes. So when Su Sifei wanted to break up with me after her rebirth, I didn't stop her, because I knew it was unstoppable. Watching them get back together, I deleted all of Su Sifei's contact information, thinking I'd never have the chance to see her again in this life. But unexpectedly, I ran into her here. I wanted to leave, but Liang Zong wouldn't let it go, insisting on embarrassing me in front of everyone. You've really gone to great lengths to get close to Sifei. Looking at how you're dressed, I doubt you even have a job to make ends meet. How about this? I'll introduce you to work as a waiter here. If you learn to serve people well, you could make a 5-figure salary per month. Someone nearby, wanting to please him, added with a grin. This is a hotel in the prime location of High City. Being able to work here would be a stroke of luck for you. Hurry up and thank young Master Liang. Surrounded by people and unable to leave, I reluctantly said, Thank you, but I already have a job. It's photography. As soon as the word photography was mentioned, Su Sifei immediately looked at me. A flicker of complexity passed through her eyes, and her lips moved slightly. She turned her head away without looking at me and spoke in a cold tone. How much money can you make for photography? You can't make a living off a hobby. Since we're all acquaintances here, I can arrange a job for you. I was taken aback, immediately realizing that she had misunderstood. My interest in photography isn't because I still have lingering feelings for Su Sifei. In fact, when I saw that farewell letter in my previous life, I had already completely given up. It's just that when I was reborn, I found out all the money had already been spent on photography equipment. I couldn't sell it on secondhand platforms, so I had no choice but to pick it up and use it myself. As a result, I actually fell in love with photography. In this life, I'm not trying to please others, just myself. I politely declined Sife again, my tone courteous but distant. My hobby is enough to cover my living expenses, thanks for your concern. Seeing that I didn't know what was good for me, a flash of anger crossed Sife's face. You're not taking the chance I'm giving yo. You don't come crying to me later. I didn't say anything, nor did I tell her. Now, my photography work is specifically supplied to several national-level publications and top international journals. When you add up the various copyright fees, it's not less than Sife's income. But if I said this out loud, she'd probably think I was bragging. After all, in my wrinkled pajamas, I do look quite shabby. It's strange with my son. He insisted on me accompanying him to play in the sandbox. But as soon as I turned around, he had snuck downstairs again. I hadn't even had time to change my clothes before I chased after him. Just as I was thinking of an excuse to leave, that waiter from earlier seemed to have noticed something. He pointed at my clothes and said, Balenciaga, where did you pick up that outfit? You're not a cleaner here who stole it from a guest room, are you? I couldn't help but frown. Can't these clothes be my own? Liang Xiang snorted and mocked. Your own? Can you afford it? Which rich person would dress so casually and run around like you? He theatrically covered his nose. It's so dirty, I bet you put it on without even washing it after stealing it. Sife looked at me, her brows furrowed enough to kill a fly. Tianxi, you've sunk this low, and you're still going to be stubborn about it? I didn't want to bother with them and spoke directly to the waiter. If you really think I've stolen something, you're welcome to call the police right now. I knew he saw Liang Xiang's dissatisfaction with me and wanted to step on me to please others. Sure enough, his arrogance immediately subsided, and he muttered quietly. If it weren't for the VIP guest at the hotel today, and I'm worried you people would disturb them, I would have called the police already. Liang Xiang's eyes lit up, and he quickly chimed in. It's Miss Lo, right? I heard she's staying at this hotel while visiting the coastal city with her family. Sife nodded, her eyes showing anticipation. It would be great if we could get the Lo family support for the company's current project. The words Miss Lo were like water splashed into hot oil, immediately stirring up a wave of discussion. Isn't the reason we came to this banquet today to meet Miss Lo? This whole building belongs to her family. I heard she got married and had a child in her early 20s, but no one knows which family's young master she married. As everyone was discussing, the lobby manager came running in, sweating profusely, with a group of people following behind him. Everyone, has anyone seen a 7-year-old boy here, about this tall? The manager wiped his sweat, his eyes searching anxiously around the hall. Some people were quick to react, seeing such a commotion, and immediately guessed what was happening. Is it the young master of the Luo family? I heard he's just 7 years old this year. The banquet guests became enthusiastic, hurriedly searching everywhere. After all, if they found the boy, there might be a chance to establish a connection with the Luo family. Sife and Liang Xiang also started searching, too busy to pay attention to me. Looking at the chaotic hall, I walked straight to the dessert area. Sure enough, I found my son under there, his face smeared with cream. I extended my hand with a stern face. Come here. My son was startled, clinging to the table leg and refusing to let go. I won't come. Just as I was about to pull him over, Liang Xiang appeared out of nowhere, righteously blocking my way. Tianxi, what are you doing? Even if you want to establish a connection with the Luo family, you shouldn't lay hands on a child, right? Sife rushed over when she heard the news, her eyes full of disappointment when she looked at me. Tianxi, I never thought you would do such a thing for fame and fortune. The waiter grabbed the manager to complain. It's this man. He suddenly barged into the banquet and even stole another customer's clothes. The manager's face immediately turned cold and called for security. Arrest this thief and take him straight to the police station. If he scares the young master, you'll all lose your jobs. A hint of satisfaction flashed in Liang Xiang's eyes as he bent down and put on a kind face for the young master of the Luo family. Come here to Uncle. Uncle will protect you. His son ignored him completely and, to everyone's astonishment, carefully reached for my hand. Dad, I know I was wrong. I twisted his ear and said coldly, have you forgotten what the doctor said? Getting cavities and still sneaking sweets. Seeing his son wince in pain, Liang Xiang quickly criticized me. If he wants to eat something, let him eat it. What right do you have to control him? I said calmly. I'm his father. Why can't I discipline him? Liang Xiang only then realized what his son had just called me. He suddenly fell silent, his gaze shifting back and forth between me and my son. I let go of my hand, and my son immediately clung to me, trying to please me. Dad, I only ate a little bit. I won't get cavities. The cream on his face smeared all over me. I held him away in disgust and said irritably, if your mom finds out later, I won't stop her from scolding you. My son was in the period of changing teeth and liked to eat sweets, so he had developed several cavities. Whenever he had a toothache, Luo Qingzhu would be extremely worried, but unable to resist our son's coquettish behavior. She would often turn a blind eye. During this vacation, Luo Qingzhu was called away by a phone call from her company. I was being strict with him, and he actually snuck down to the banquet to steal some food. Seeing my serious face, my son hugged my leg, trying to appease me. Dad, I won't dare to do it again. The manager standing nearby was trembling, his voice getting lower. Are you Miss Luo's husband? I nodded slightly. Yes. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and quickly forced a smile on his face. We failed to recognize such an important person. Would you and the young master like to go upstairs to freshen up? Looking at the mess of cream all over me, I was about to follow the manager when suddenly someone grabbed me. Looking back, it was Su Sifei. She opened her mouth, but it took a while before she could speak. You're married? And have a child? I pulled my clothes free, nodding indifferently. Yes, got married right after graduation. I met Luo Qingzhu through photography. While I was scouting locations abroad, I happened to find Luo Qingzhu who had fallen down a hillside during her hike. It was a remote area with poor signal reception, and I had to make quite an effort to rescue her. While waiting for rescue, she curiously looked at my past works and started chatting with me. As we talked, we discovered that we had many topics in common. By the time we returned to our country, we were already together. To my surprise, her family didn't look down on my background. Luo Qingzhu smiled and looked into my eyes with determination. Tianqi, your character and personality are the deciding factors in why I chose you. I thought that because of my past with Su Sifei, it would be difficult for me to fall in love with someone again. But Luo Qingzhu made me understand that loving and being loved are reciprocal. Looking back on my previous life, those pains and struggles now seem so distant. The son in my arms was urging me, Dad, let's go back to find Mom. I miss her. But Su Sifei refused to move aside. She stared at me intently, relentless. Are you deliberately trying to anger me? Didn't you say you would only love me in this lifetime? Did you say that? A woman's voice sounded from behind me, followed by a chorus of murmurs around us. Miss Luo, Director Luo, boss. Looking back, I realized Luo Qingzhu had also come down at some point. She held my arm and looked at Su Sifei, her tone neither warm nor cold. Is this your ex-girlfriend? Afraid she might get jealous again, I hurriedly explained. We were together when we were young, just for a month. We haven't been in contact for 10 years. These words rushing to clear up our relationship made Su Sifei's face turn pale. After thinking for a moment, I added, besides, I never said I'd only love her for my entire life. Su Sifei stared at me, understanding the meaning behind my words. That promise was made by me in my previous life. Living again in a new life, we both chose different paths, so naturally that promise no longer counts. She said resentfully, But we had so much history together, how co? Old you forget everything and be with someone else? Liang Xiang's face was already as dark as it could get. I sighed helplessly. Why not? Aren't you with Liang Xiang now? You're getting married next month. Yet here you are accusing me. Isn't that going too far? Blocked by my words, Su Sifei's face turned a mix of pale and ashen. Before she could say anything more, Liang Xiang couldn't stand watching anymore. Sifei, let's go. He's married now. He has nothing to do with you anymore. I'm the one who has always been by your side. But just as he grabbed Su Sifei's hand, she slapped it away. Looking at the red mark appearing on the back of his hand, Liang Xiang's face suddenly flushed crimson. In the past, Su Sifei would have definitely rushed forward to hold his hand and fuss over him. But now, she didn't even spare him a glance. Liang Xiang shot me a vicious glare, his eyes unable to hide their malice. Luo Qingzhu looked at Su Sifei with a hint of a mocking smile, examining her up and down before speaking slowly. I wondered which young lady had taken a fancy to my husband. Turns out it's the ex-girlfriend. Trying to get back with your ex before breaking up with your current boyfriend. Isn't that a bit shameless? Su Sifei's face turned pale, rushing to explain in panic. No, I raised my hand to interrupt her words. Su Sifei, what happened between us is in the past. Now I have a family, and you have someone who loves you. I wish you happiness. Those last 5 words hit her like a heavy hammer, leaving Su Sifei stunned. She stared at me blankly, crystal tears suddenly rolling down her face. Tianqi, have you really forgotten our past? I don't believe it. We were together for so long, and you loved me so much. The dissatisfaction on Luo Qingzhu's face became increasingly apparent as she gave a cold smile. Just 1 month, how long is that? Longer than the time we've been married. I knew Su Sifei was talking about things from her previous life, where I stayed by her side for 10 years. But even if I told these words to Luo Qingzhu, she wouldn't believe them. I shook my head, interrupting Su Sifei. It's not that I've forgotten, it's that I've let go. I no longer care. In this life, since we've both chosen different paths, it means those past events aren't important. I returned her previous words back to her. Su Sifei, why do you remain so stubbornly blind? What was between us is completely over. As soon as the words were spoken, Su Sifei's eyes turned red. I had no interest in continuing the conversation with her. Just as I was about to step forward, I heard Luo Qingzhu speak leisurely. I just heard that someone accused my husband of being a thief and wanted to send him to the police station. The waiter's shoulders trembled as they hurriedly apologized. It's all because of my poor judgment. I misunderstood you, sir. I apologize to both of you. He bent over, his head almost touching the ground, completely losing his previous arrogance and insolence. After dealing with the waiter, Luo Qingzhu turned her attention to Liang Xiang. You want to introduce a new job to my husband, letting him work as a busboy at my family's hotel? Should I thank you on behalf of my husband? She curled her lips, her tone tinged with a hint of mockery. My husband's copyright fees are over 10 million a year. If you can't offer a salary higher than that, then forget it. Liang Xiang forced a slight smile and retreated behind the crowd. I was just joking, please don't take it seriously. Under Luo Qingzhu's gaze, the others at the banquet quickly lowered their heads. Those who had joined in mocking me earlier now didn't dare to breathe, afraid of being remembered by Luo Qingzhu. After doing all this, Luo Qingzhu finally looked at me, raising her eyebrows. I knew what she meant. She was standing up for me. With one arm holding our son and the other around her waist, I spoke intimately. Thank you, honey. I'm not angry anymore. Su Sifei tried to follow and say something, but stopped in her tracks under Luo Qingzhu's sharp glance. Back upstairs, Luo Qingzhu quickly called people to clean up both me and our son. She then opened her phone and had her assistant order a new batch of clothes for me. She said with displeasure, "These shallow, judgmental people. I wasn't paying attention for just a moment, and they dared to belittle you like this. Don't worry, honey. From now on you won't wear any clothes that cost less than 6 figures. I can't let those people look down on you." I felt helpless and stopped her from spending money. I need to run around taking photos all day. How could I wear those expensive suits? Any durable and washable clothes will do. Luo Qingzhu frowned and suggested after some thought. Then let me get you a new car. Would you prefer a Maserati or a Maybach? I shook my head, realizing that the incident of me being bullied today had really upset her. Over these years, Luo Qingzhu has been very good to me. Some people who knew my background thought that after marrying Luo Qingzhu, I would become her full-time housekeeper, having to humble myself before her in everything. After all, such marriages between different social classes and wealthy families are usually unequal. In fact, Luo Qingzhu has always respected me and valued my career. When she's not busy with work, she would travel with me and let me teach her photography. My wife and I are no different from any other happy couple in the world. Especially today, after seeing Su Sifei, I'm even more certain I won't regret my choice. I thought that dinner party would be my last intersection with Su Sifei. Unexpectedly, during a photography trip, I ran into her again. Today, Su Sifei wore a white long dress without Mac. Yup, looking very much like her college self. Upon seeing me, she immediately stood up. Tianqi, I knew you would come here. She bit her lip, her eyes full of pain and struggle. You clearly haven't forgotten the past. You still love me, don't you? I instinctively stepped back twice, looking around, only then realizing this was the park we used to frequently visit together. Today I needed to take photos by the lake, so I chose this nearby location, never expecting Su Sifei to be here. It seemed she was deliberately waiting for me. I had a bit of a headache, not understanding why she still hadn't given up. Su Sifei, what's past is past. I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish by finding me. Let me just ask you one thing. Do I still love you? I've said it countless times already. I don't love you anymore. Why won't you believe me? Are you trying to force me to say, I love you? Then what? I divorce Luo Qingzhu. You break up with Liang Xiang, and we get back together? As soon as the words were spoken, Su Sifei stepped forward quickly and said urgently, Of course we can. We can certainly get back together. This time I was truly stunned. I had thought that Su Sifei was just obsessed with the past, feeling uncomfortable that the admirer who had followed her for 10 years was no longer pursuing her. I didn't expect that she actually wanted to get back together with me. I stepped back twice and said with a frown, "Have you lost your mind? In your past life, you died for love because of Liang Ziong. In this life, you got together with him. And now you're saying you want to break up? Tianxi, I've wronged you." Su Sifei's face showed a hint of pain as she said softly, "Yes, when I was reborn, I chose to find Liang Ziong. However, after we got together, I discovered that I didn't love him as much as I had imagined. Actually, he proposed to me many times, but I never accepted. I still remember our unfinished honeymoon from our previous life." As she spoke about her previous life, I calmly replied, "I remember you left a suicide note, saying in this life you only wanted to be Liang Ziong's bride." Su Sifei hurriedly said, "But I regret it. I truly regret being with Liang Ziong. If I could start over, I wouldn't leave you. Tianxi, can we start over? This time, I will devote myself to you completely, and I absolutely won't make you sad again." Her confession only seemed laughable to me. You want to start over again, but being reborn once is already a blessing from heaven. Su Sifei, we're both adults now. We need to learn to take responsibility for our own choices. Looking in her eyes, I said softly, "In this life, I have no regrets. No regrets about separating from you. No regrets about marrying Luo Qingzhu. No regrets about pursuing my own life." Su Sifei said unwillingly, "I'm the one with 10 years of memories with you. My love is no less than Luo Qingzhu's. Why do you insist on choosing her?" I smiled and asked her, "We have 10 years in the past, but do you know what I like to eat? What am I allergic to? What color do I prefer? What games do I enjoy playing?" As I asked a series of questions, Su Sifei's face grew paler. I sighed. "Su Sifei, you say you love me, but what do you love about me? During those 10 years we were together, I always followed behind you, sacrificing my own needs to please you. What you loved was my unconditional, self-sacrificing love." I picked up the camera in my hand and showed it to her. "This time, I'm no longer living for others, but for myself. Luo Qingzhu loves the complete, true me." After this, Su Sifei never came to bother me again. However, Luo Qingzhu asked about it a few times, seemingly quite concerned about this ex-girlfriend. She has always been the jealous type. I reported to her about the encounter in the park that day, and it took quite a while of comforting before we could move past this issue. Not long after, I heard the news that Su Sifei's company went bankrupt. Only then did I learn that Liang Ziong had hidden his gambling addiction from her. Liang Ziong was always a good-for-nothing. Having picked up various bad habits before, and after getting money, he became even more unruly. Su Sifei was very indulgent with him, and even handed over the company's finance department to him at his request. Once that happened, things went wrong. People had already targeted this uneducated and simple-minded nouveau riche, setting up schemes specifically for him. That time, after arguing with Su Sifei over my matter, he went straight to the casino. In his drunken state, he lost all the money he had on him. Afraid of Su Sifei finding out, he embezzled company funds hoping to win the money back. But in a casino, how could there be any chance of winning it back? Not only did he not win, he completely lost all the money. Su Sifei only discovered this when the company's cash flow broke down. But by then, it was all too late. In fact, because she and Liang Ziong are already married, these debts became their joint marital debt. When I accompanied Luo Qingzhu to a banquet, I heard people talking about this matter, and the audience sighed in response. Su Sifei was considered a talented young person with early achievements, but unfortunately had poor judgment and married such a man, half a lifetime's efforts wasted. Yes, I heard he's also an abusive husband who beats people when he comes home after losing money. The last time I saw Su Sifei, she was bundled up from head to toe in the middle of summer, and there were still bruises at the corners of her eyes. When Luo Qingzhu heard this, she couldn't help but frown. Although she quite disliked Su Sifei, they were both women after all. "I want to find her a lawyer to help her get a divorce." "What do you think?" I nodded, unable to hold back a sigh in my heart. Having chosen a new path in life, only to end up with such a result. Su Sifei's regret must be growing rather than diminishing. When Liang Ziong sent Su Sifei to the hospital once again, the lawyer finally won the divorce case. Liang Ziong was sent to prison for intentional injury, returning to the place he knew best. After recovering in the hospital, Su Sifei wanted to see me. Luo Qingzhu sneered. "Wasn't I the one who helped her? Why does she insist on seeing you?" That's why when Su Sifei entered, Luo Qingzhu didn't give her a pleasant look. "I help you with the divorce case, but don't make us pay your debts." Su Sifei lowered her head in embarrassment, hesitating for a long while before gathering courage to say to Luo Qingzhu, "Thank you. I was wrong before. I should have kept my distance from your husband. I won't talk about getting back together anymore." She closed her eyes briefly, but still spoke those words. I know he loves you now. I was slightly stunned, not expecting that after this incident. She had come to understand. It's good that you can let go of the past. Su Sifei forced a smile. The bruise on her face hadn't faded yet, making the smile look particularly bitter. People are always like this. They don't cherish what they have, only realizing its value after completely losing it. I've always chased after things I couldn't have. It was Liang Xiang before, and now it's you. Now I understand this time between the two of us, it's good enough if one of us can find happiness. After saying this, she turned and left. Luo Qingzhu glanced at me and said softly, "Aren't you going to see her off?" I hugged her and chuckled.